Okay, so we're going to look at trig functions with a calculator and then move on to some simple trig equations. So first, let's just do a little review here. If I want to convert from degrees to radians, remember I'm going to multiply my degrees by pi over 180. Okay, so before we were looking at leaving those with pi in our answer. So the only difference now is that when we get our calculator out here, we can put that in a decimal. We're going to show that as a decimal. So just go 155 times, and looky here, underneath our exponent sign in blue is our pi divided by 180, and that's going to give us 2.705. So 155 degrees is going to equal 2.705 radians. Okay, I'll leave number 2 for you as an example there. Okay, so likewise, when we convert radians to degrees, okay, our rule was we're going to multiply our radians by 180 over pi. Okay, and same deal. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go 5.8 times 180 divided by, and then again second, and then here's pi up here, right? Okay, so that's going to leave us with 332.32 degrees, I guess. Okay, so just make sure that you realize when you see a value that doesn't have um, a unit behind it, that implies that it's a radian. Okay, and when there's one that has a degrees behind it, you put the degrees. Okay, so the only difference from what we were doing before is that we used to see the pi in our answer, and now we're writing um, for our radians anyway, and now we're writing everything in terms of a decimal. Okay, so we're going to go and look at our circle. Okay, it's nice to know have an idea of what 1 radian is. And we've done this in class before, but let's just go ahead and do it. So if I go 1 radian, I'm going to multiply that by 180 over pi. So 180 divided by pi. Okay, remember pi is just a number. It's 3.14. So really, I'm dividing 180 by the exact value of pi, or approximately 3.14, and that gives me around 57.3 degrees. So 1 radian is like 57.3 degrees. So it's kind of nice to know which quadrants these are in. So this is basically a good estimation of 1 radian. This is a good estimation. Another 57.3 degrees is 2. But as we go around the circle, we know that at pi here, that's approximately 3.14 radians. Okay? And at 2 pi, that's approximately 6.28 radians. And on and on. Okay, so when we go to do our approximations, go ahead in your calculator and find these exactly. But just realize that, 1 is here, 2 is in the second quadrant, 3 is just going to be a little bit before a half circle. Okay, 4 radians, it's going to be in here someplace. 5 radians, down here somewhere. And then 6 radians, this is 6.28 is a full circle, so 6 radians is going to be around there somewhere. Okay, so let's go ahead and try down here. We're going to determine the quadrant for each angle in radians. So just looking for the quadrant, so 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like it's going to be in the fourth quadrant. Okay, 0.487, okay, here's 1, so 0.487 is going to be in here someplace. So that's going to be in the first quadrant. 2.5, well, I know 2 is here and 3 is here, so looks like that's going to be in the second quadrant. And minus 3.5, well, minus 3 is going to be around here someplace. So 3.5 is going to be in there. It looks like it's going to be in the second quadrant. So bottom line is just to remember that a radian is just this radius stretched around the outside of the circle. And it's around 57.3 degrees. So really important to remember that when we're dealing in radians and we see pi, it means 3.14. Okay, so that's half our circle. So when we see numbers that are radians that are written without pi, so 3 is here, 4 is here, 5 is here, 6 is here, we remember where they are on the circle. So let's move on to finding values of trig functions using the calculator. And it's got a little note here. It says always put your calculator in the correct mode before finding any trig values in your calculator. So it's really important to make sure that the calculator knows, or that you know, what information you're giving the calculator so you can get the right values up. Okay, so let's start with an easy one here. And sine of 30, this is something that we should already know. We don't need a calculator to do this, but just take a look at what's going on here. So if I've got sine of 30, I know I'm looking for my 30-degree angle is here, and that means that I'm going to have this side as a half, this side is root of 3 over 2. So my sine, and this is 1, so my sine of 30 degrees is going to be my opposite over my hypotenuse, or my y over my r. So this is just going to equal a half. Okay, so we know that that's what we should get in here is a half. Okay, so in our calculator, okay, we need to tell the calculator that we're putting it either in degrees or in radians. Okay, so when I go to where I do that is in the mode. Okay, so there's this button that says mode here. So push that and float down to here where it gives you a choice of either radians or degrees. So because I'm shooting in, this is just for when you're going to go put an angle into your calculator. You need to tell the calculator, is my angle in degrees or is my angle that I'm telling you in radians? And here it's obviously in degrees. So I'm going to push over to that, push enter, okay? And now I'm going to go back to my home screen and I can just push sine of 30, and that's going to give me 0.5, or my half. Okay, so it worked out nice. Okay, if you don't do that, if we go back to our mode here and we set it to radians, okay, and we do the same thing, it's obviously going to give us out. It's what are we really asking the calculator? We're asking the calculator, what's the sine when our angle is 30 radians? Okay, and it's going to give us a totally different answer here. So what's nice about the calculator though is that instead of we've just been dealing with our special triangles, 30s, 45s, and 60s, but now we can go ahead and find the trig ratios for any angle. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a special triangle. So if I'll let you guys go ahead and give these a try. I can just push cos of 47.2 degrees in there. As long as I have my calculator set to degrees, it's going to spit out the proper ratio or the proper value. Okay, and yeah, number 13 here is kind of a nice one to take a look at. It shows a little bit of an exception. Okay, so my angle here is in radians, so I'm going to go back to my mode, and I'm in radians here, so I'm okay. And I'm going to push tan of 3 pi, so 3 and then pi is here, over 2. And I'm going to get a bit of a weird result here. Okay, I'm going to get an error. So to figure out what's going on, we want to take a look at what we're actually asking the calculator to calculate here. So if I look at the picture, tan of 3 pi over 2, okay, let's draw out where 3 pi over 2 is down here, right? Okay, and so on my circle, this is going to be the coordinates of 0 and -1. Now the ratio for tan is what? The ratio for tan is y over x. So tan of 3 pi over 2 is going to be -1, and looky here, over 0. And that's why our calculator is spitting out that error to us because we've got -1 over 0, and we all know that that's undefined. So when you see that error, it means that your solution here is going to be undefined. I can't divide any number by 0. So I think I'm going to leave those at that, and that'll be the end of this video. And we'll pick up with reciprocal functions and a few trig equations on the next video. So there you go. Have a ball.